Kita niyo. So you're able to see this Annex 86, di ba? We've done a lot of lecture on the CLUP formulation, and we also had nung regular review natin. But yeah, this specific tools or rules this is within zoning ordinance. So Annex 8-6 is innovative land use and urban design rules. There are keywords there. So nakarating na rin kayo dito na. Hindi sure gumagalaw on my part. But so keywords there, we have the transfer of development rights. Can you see? Di ba, we have conventional zoning. We have conventional zoning there. And then we also have it mentioned about transfer of development rights, and then also kaya ko kayang i-ganito okay. And then so ito siya transfer, ayan, transfer development rights and overlay zones. So have you heard about transfer development rights, especially those who are also who are real estate practitioners, right? So but I haven't seen any, the mere fact that HLURB mentioned this as an innovative land use tool. So probably there must be some examples elsewhere. And it says here that with site-specific urban design rules must supplement conventional zoning tools to preserve natural environment features and the unique character of a community or control the kind of development in greater detail. So it means that on top of the conventional zoning that we have, we can also incorporate this if and when and where necessary. So I'm looking into some examples, kahit man lang sana drawing on transfer development rights. Let me see kung paano ko. Stop share ko lang because I cannot find it here, but I have something. May nakita ko. Just a moment. Dali lang. Dali lang. Here yata. Okay. Yeah, just one page ba to? Okay. This one. So how does it says here? How does TDR work? So anyone here who has experience on lecturing or attending this one? Meron ba sa inyo? So okay. Transfer of development rights or TDR. Okay. Because nakalagay kasi doon allows landowners in designated preservation areas to sell their development rights to developers in designated growth areas. This system encourages conservation while promoting development in suitable locations. So it's like an exchange deal. That because the primary goal of TDR is to protect valuable lands. As you can see in the drawing, somewhat agricultural kasi, di ba? May plots doon. So, yeah, just one of the many, you know, types of lands that are considered valuable or should be preserved in this particular context, the TDR. It could be also an environmental sensitive or historical sites also by redirecting development to areas better suited for higher density. You may wonder, how should that work? Paano ba yan ginagawa? But in Philippines, I cannot see anything yet that uh, that is considered, and unless you have heard about it. So if you look at that, yeah, it's an agricultural. So the landowner in this area holds what we call development rights, but he or she chooses to sell them to preserve the land's natural or historical value. Can you imagine that? It's not selling the land itself, but the development rights to another. And there are two things in this particular framework, because it's a framework. You've seen that it was mentioned by H. Lorb. So if it's not heavily used at this time, probably in the future, it could be yeah, a helpful, like a mechanism. So the other side, the right side, could be an urban or suburban area designated for higher density development. So this could include commercial buildings. You can see there, my barber shop, market, something. So you can judge by that. And so, and also residential complexes and mixed use development. So, um, developers in these areas purchase the development rights from landowners in the sending area. So the sending area is the one who owns the agricultural area. Okay? Allowing them to build at higher densities than typically permitted. So if they're allowed only in the left side, on the right side, for example, they're allowed only like five-story building, then that's the usual. And so because they've purchased through the TDR, they purchase the development right from the owner of the agricultural area. So that will give them a go signal or the red light to increase density from 5 to more than 5. Okay, so the landowner in the sending area, okay, sells their development rights. So nawalan ba sila ng lupa? Hindi naman. So this transaction provides financial compensation to the landowner for not developing their land. So the developer in the receiving area, so sending area is the agricultural land, and the receiving area is the one that's the suburb or the urban area. Okay, so that's the receiving area. So the money there, so uh nakita niyo yung money doon, ano? That represents the payment made to the landowner. So this purchase allows the developer to increase the building density, as I mentioned earlier, on their property, shown by the larger and denser buildings on the right side of the drawing, as you can see. So the developer uses the purchase development rights to construct buildings with higher density in the receiving area. So the land in the sending area is preserved and remains undeveloped, maintaining its environmental, agricultural, or historical significance. I also tried to look into some examples, but I saw something on Maryland, USA, Montgomery County. So this Montgomery County has one of the most successful TDR programs in the US. This was established in the 1980s. So it aimed to preserve agricultural land and manage urban growth. So the area is comprised of over 90 acres, designated as the sending area. Okay, so yun yung agriculture reserve. They call it agricultural reserve. Landowners could sell their development rights to developers, ensuring the land remained dedicated to agriculture and open spaces. On the other hand, the receiving area, okay, they call it urban growth area. So developers in designated urban areas such as downtown Silver Spring, ganon, that one from that county, they purchased this rights. So this allowed them to build at higher densities, creating vibrant mixed-use urban centers. So what's the outcome? The TDR program has preserved over 50,000 acres of farmland while promoting sustainable development in urban areas. So it has successfully balanced growth and conservation, providing economic benefits to both landowners and developers. So what's the benefit of the TDR? So in case this will be asked in the board, so TDR helps conserve critical natural habitats, agricultural lands, and historic sites by redirecting development pressures. So you understand now the wala naman, they did not provide this type of discussion in the HLURB guidelines. So I just needed to show you this to make sure that, but I downloaded this from slide share, so I can provide you ito. Okay, ganyan lang yung nakikita natin. So that you would like to, maybe you would like to implement like this in the future. Anyway, it's allowed in Philippines. So also, economic incentives, ano yung mga landowners in sending areas receive financial compensation which supports their conservation efforts, di ba? So developers in receiving areas benefit from the ability to build more densely, enhancing property values and economic viability, but that they were able to do through DTR as a tool or as a mechanism. So what else? A lot to mention, like social equity, because TDR supports balanced growth by promoting development in suitable areas while preserving important lands, benefiting diverse communities. So that's it's also a regulatory framework which we can incorporate on in our zoning ordinance. It would be good to, to learn from this one, pero yeah, it takes a while because you need to be very precise na yun na lang yung parang last line, parang last line of defense. Ito na lang yung pwede to preserve, parang ganon, some valuable lands. Okay, I'll stop share. So how do you feel about that as a tool?
Um,
Hello?
question lang po.
Yes.
Na-mention niyo po kanina ma'am na magkakaroon po ng pera yung mga landowners na hindi po magkakaroon ng development, 'di ba? Yung
Mm-mm.
binilhan nga po ng development rights.
Yes.
Ang bayad ba po nito ay one-time payment or yearly ba po ito?
One-time payment, oo.
One-time lang.
One-time lang
Okay.
payment siya. So,
Copy po.
parang binili mo na yan eh. Kaya yun na yun, development right. And you are paying them to preserve. And because, you may wonder, bakit ganon? Kailangan mong because you want to increase density, which before it was not permitted. Ganon. Okay ba?
Yes, ma'am. Copy po.
Okay. Maganda ba yung concept na yan? So I'll move to another. Okay, let's see. Para lang maintindihan natin yung iba-ibang. Hmm. Let me see. Ay, nakikita ba? Okay. Share screen ulit. Guidelines. Okay. So would be good to look into. And another one is overlay laser. So I'm not going to read anymore. All this information here could be long. But so pedestrian oriented development overlay zones. So what are this? Again, it's a planning tool, right? It's a planning tool that provide better pedestrian access to commercial and residential areas and transit stops through compact development, mixed use, traffic calming. So you know already what's traffic calming. So you can see all the structures and drawings that you see are actual traffic calming areas and pedestrian and transit orientation. And so I'll just continue that safe, convenient opportunities for walking and biking to school or work are emphasized over car-dependent development. So pedestrian and transit-oriented development is more inclusive and helps reduce congestion and air pollution, loss of open space, road maintenance, blah, blah, blah. So new developments should provide pedestrian-friendly alleys, walkways, landscaping, lighting, and other features that encourage people to walk. So that's the reference. You can see that in October. And it also mentioned, kaya pala dun sa references ng HLORB, nakalagay doon yung Zamboanga, CLUP yata yan. So if you've seen the reference there. So kaya in the second paragraph there, in Zamboanga, portions of the old CBD will be pedestrianized. So probably when they wrote this one, so it's development is ongoing. And so it also mentioned landscape and provided with people movers, so Tranvia looking buses. So parking buildings in strategic locations will be constructed in the periphery, okay, and in the pedestrianized area. So that's Zamboanga in 2013. It also provided overseas, example, in Minneapolis, Massachusetts, a pedestrian-oriented overlay district was established to preserve and encourage the pedestrian character of commercial areas and to promote street life and activity by regulating building orientation and design and accessory parking. Parking, asan na ako? Ayan. Facilities and by prohibiting certain high impact and automobile-oriented uses. So there's a drawing there. Okay, so good, always good to have a drawing. So pedestrian-oriented development, okay, is an overlay zone that can be integrated under Article 5, Zone Regulation, Section 13, overlay zones. So when you look into the more detailed, you can look at the volume 3. So it says here, but probably I can discuss a little about this one, that POD. Okay, let's call it POD, pedestrian oriented development. POD overlay zones are specialized planning tools. Okay, I'll just repeat that, designed to enhance pedestrian access because it's pedestrian. So when this one will come out in the board, so it would be easy kasi pedestrian nga eh. So the objective is to enhance pedestrian access and mobility in urban areas. Diba? And so these zones focus on creating compact mixed-use developments that prioritize walking, biking, and public transportation over car dependence. So those are keywords. So there are some key components there I'd like to reiterate, like compact development. So being compact, it encourages building densely to bring residential, commercial, and recreational spaces close together. It also, as being compact, meaning that it facilitates easier access to amenities and services without the need for a car. Another key component of this concept, of this tool, is mixed use areas. So I mentioned about compact development earlier, and now the second one as a component is mixed use area. So being a mixed use area, it combines different land uses such as housing, shops, offices, and entertainment within close proximity. So it creates vibrant, diverse neighborhoods where people can live, work, and play. Another key components I mentioned already about compact development, mixed-use areas, traffic calming measure. So as a traffic calming measure, it's implementing design features like narrow streets, speed bumps, and roundabouts to slow down traffic. So I mentioned three: narrow streets, speed bumps, and roundabouts as a traffic calming measure. It also enhances safety for pedestrians and cyclists. And so the last component that I can mention is pedestrian and traffic orientation. So we already have had four: compact development, mixed use areas, traffic calming measures, and pedestrian and traffic orientation. Because for a fact that it is designed to prioritize walking and public transit over car travel. It includes features like wide sidewalks, pedestrian crossings, bus stops, and bike lanes. So, and the reason why it mentioned about Zamboanga, because that one, as I've read earlier, portions of the old CBD have been pedestrianized, landscaped, and equipped with tram-like buses for public transport. Also, Zamboanga, yeah, they had strategic parking facilities. These were located on the periphery of the pedestrianized zone to reduce car traffic within the area. Also, in Zamboanga, pedestrian and vehicular segregation is achieved through the construction of skyways, skywalks, and underpasses. Meron ba? I'm not sure if that's Zamboanga, pero many times nagpunta ako doon. So, but they have ano to, how do you call that? Ironically, Zamboanga City is so they have problems on traffic because 2013 ito, no? So now is 2024, so 11 years had passed, and so they don't have like mahirap yung ano nila, it's too congested. So, okay, what else? Minneapolis, so it mentioned about Minneapolis kasi the city established a pedestrian-oriented overlay district to promote the pedestrian character of commercial areas. Their regulations also were focused on building orientation and design, prohibiting high-impact automobile-oriented uses. Also, it encouraged street life and activity by enhancing the pedestrian experience. So, what are those design features that you can see there? So let's start with the drawing from the left. Walkways, di ba? Walk, parking, bike lane, refuge. Okay, the right. So okay. So walkways there, yeah, it provides continuous and safe pedestrian paths that connect different parts of the development. So landscaping also, obviously, you can see there. So these are the design features of this tool. Yeah, it integrated green spaces, trees, plants to create a pleasant environment. So also, as a design feature of this particular tool, it should ensure well-lit pathways for safety and security. Also, it also incorporated some street furniture. It included benches, trash cans, and bike racks to support pedestrian needs. And so it's also a public art, like it enhances the aesthetic appeal and cultural significance of the area. So those are some of the design features when you are thinking about, pedestrian-oriented development. Okay, walk, parking, bike, okay. So that one, okay, benefits, environmental, social, economic. Yeah, they are, of course. So now we need to recognize that they are, it's a vital, these are, these zones are vital in creating sustainable, livable, and vibrant urban environments, because it's prioritizing pedestrians and public transit. So, we go down to the next one. Okay. For transit-oriented, TOD. Okay, yung kanina is POD. Then we have the TOD. So what do you know? And meron din siyang i-reduce ko mata so that you can see the drawing. Okay. Okay, what is this? So what's all about the TOD, right? Okay. Let me just read a little on this one. Yeah, this TOD, it's a overlay zone. Again, it's a planning tool that concentrate, as you can read there, commercial and residential growth around transit centers. So you can imagine, different parts of in Manila, right? It surrounds, it's surrounded by the transit or around transit centers to maximize access to public transportation. So these zones typically encompass areas within a kilometer of a transit station, ensuring that residents and workers can easily reach public transit by walking or biking. So the primary goal of the OD is to create dense, mixed-use communities that support significant transit ridership and reduce dependence on automobiles. So again, we need to break down kasi masyadong no. So if you read at that, kind of confusing. We try to break down the key components. Okay, proximity to transit. So that's the first one, where developments are located within a short walking distance, so less than 1 kilometer from transit stations. So that's a feature or a key component. Also, as a proximity to transit also should ensure easy access to public transportation, encouraging its use. Another key component is mixed-use development. So proximity to transit and then mixed use. Because it combines residential, so the normal one, the normal feature of mixed use, that you are combining residential, commercial, office, and recreational spaces in close proximity. So that creates now vibrant neighborhoods where people can live, work, shop, and play without relying on cars. Another key component is density and this density and design standards, higher density developments to support sufficient transit ridership. And then another one is design standards that promote pedestrian friendly also environments, like the POD, such as wider sidewalks. So it's kind of similar, right? Pedestrian crossings and bike lanes, but this one is about the transit because it's transit oriented, isn't it? And so restrictions on building heights also and setbacks to create a cohesive urban fabric. Now, as to choice in transportation modes, it integrates various transportation options, including buses, trains, biking, and walking. And so it encourages a shift from car-centric to transit-centric lifestyles. Okay, so in Philippines, so you can imagine probably the CBD in Quezon City. So that's a typical, like a good example, because yeah, it has easy access to amenities, and also it's comfortable urban living, also ecological compliance, because yeah, if you look at their CLUP, their vision is to be a world-class, highly transit-oriented, mixed-use community that's walkable and vibrant day and night. So that's their vision. So they are concentrating development around transit stations to create a pedestrian-friendly environment and reduce car dependency. Also nakalagay, New Hampshire. Okay, yeah, I'm looking for the one the international sana. So anyway, so I'll end in this concept. So I can proceed to another. But design features trunk line, urban TOD, where high density development areas are close to the main transit stations, and the neighborhood TOD, meaning moderate density development areas, slightly farther from the main transit station, but still within walking distance. Another design feature is transit stop locations where public transit vehicles pick up and drop off passengers. Also, secondary area means that surrounding areas that support the core TOD with additional residential and commercial spaces. Another design feature is park and ride, meaning it has facilities that allow commuters to park their cars and transfer to public transit. Also, feeder bus line, another design feature, meaning that bus routes that connect outlying areas to the main transit lines. So that's feeder bus line. So again, benefits, environmental, blah, blah, blah. So, okay. We see, look at the picture so that, okay, there's the vision there. There's there's the example on Eugene, Oregon, provides for a TOD overlay zone in the hopes of encouraging mixed land uses in areas that have a high potential for enhanced transit and pedestrian activity. So, okay, please don't forget, and baka kasi mag-drawing din sila, most of the time pala may mga drawings talaga sa board exam natin, lalo na yung mga urban star, ganyan. They love, giving questions on that. Okay, urban growth boundaries. So have you heard about this one? Yeah, probably urban growth boundaries. It says here, urban growth boundaries are planning tools that promote more efficient, orderly, and compact development while preserving community character and natural resources and stimulating community and economic development. An urban growth boundary divides land between concentrated and less development. So on one side of the boundary are predominantly low density land uses such as farms and residential lots and natural or protected lands. So on the other side are more intensive land uses such as commercial. So can you imagine yung mga buffer zones diyan din, di ba? So we have buffer zones to, to imagine that when you are a planner and you are confronted with this type of concern or issue, then think of it, 'di ba, sa buffer naman, even low density residential area could be a buffer between agriculture and also a higher density like if it's a new suburban area or something or urban area, then that low density area could be a buffer in itself. So, let me see here. Okay. Yan. So it is also, again, it is an overlay zone, isn't it? So, yeah, key concepts are boundary. So urban growth. Let me see. Okay. Urban growth boundary is an overlay zone under Article 5. Baka tanungin, under Article 5 Zone Regulation Section 13.7. So, urban growth boundaries clearly delineate areas where urban development is encouraged from areas where it is restricted. Also, inside the boundary, higher density mixed use development, including residential, commercial, and industrial. So outside the boundary, lower density uses such as agriculture, forest, and natural reserve. So that's a key concept. And then in terms of another key concept, which is land use regulation, within the urban growth boundary, land use policies promote intensive development to maximize land efficiency. And outside the UGB, policies restrict development to preserve open spaces and natural resources. So growth management in this area aim to direct urban growth into designated areas to create compact, efficient urban centers. It's also growth management supports infrastructure development such as roads, utilities, public services, and others within the growth boundary, making urban services more cost effective and sustainable. So yeah, there were some wala siyang binigay na no. Let's see. Yeah, it gave the city of Portland, it says there, uses the urban growth boundary as a planning tool for protecting rural lands and preventing sprawl. So yeah, hindi lang ano, we spoke a lot about, we discussed a lot about preventing sprawl, isn't it? So yeah, you can see this one as yung the Portland, Oregon, that it used UGB to protect rural lands and prevent urban sprawl. And it defines also this UGB defines the edge of urban development, encouraging a high density growth within the boundary. So Melbourne, I think I saw Melbourne here. But Melbourne also, they aim to contain urban sprawl by directing growth to established urban areas. And because in Melbourne, Australia, they protect green belts, and they're so concerned about the green belts and agricultural lands outside the boundary. So design features high density development, public transit integration, open space preservation. And so we can go to the next, infill. Yeah, I'm not sure if you have read already, all of you, about infill. So probably hindi nyo yan makakalimutan. You will always remember that because it's so easy to recall, that infill development can occur anywhere land is underutilized, okay? Or misused compared to the surrounding land use activities. So, like in between, parang ganon. So it is often a component of mixed use development and is a technique that's frequently used to provide affordable housing. Infill development also helps conserve land, create community centers, and reduce urban sprawl, isn't it? If there's leapfrogging, and because of the leapfrogging, so one of the solutions is infill, isn't it? Because you need to fill out, the vacant land. So then that's why there's what we call the vacant land analysis, or development. And so this approach, it says the second paragraph, promotes one approach to promote infill development involves the development of a special district which identifies the specific areas within a municipality. And another approach involves identifying areas of infill development by a set of defined criteria for adaptive reuse or redevelopment for the entire community. So in both instances, a community may also enhance a zoning ordinance by identifying design guidelines. Many more. So infill development could also be if you are, like if you've seen or you're familiar with all the spaces there, or you've done something like inventory of vacant land. So because you've seen that there were some portions that are considered underutilized, so you can do infill development or misused compared to surrounding areas. So yeah, and abandoned buildings also, they could be one of those things that being considered underutilized or underdeveloped spaces within the city. As a feature or as a key concept, mixed use, infill projects often include a mix of residential, commercial, and public spaces. So this approach helps to create also multifunctional neighborhoods. I also mentioned about affordable housing. And so I wonder if if you can, okay, after this lesson, and then before you go to sleep, so maybe you can think about what are those approaches to infill development, because it's not enough to to be familiar about or to define it. You need to break down your definition, like so what are those concepts involved in a particular tool like infill. So if you have the ability uh to break it down, then do it, as so that you won't forget. And then put some images on your imagination, like meron kang ipipicture ano yon, and that's why it's very important to look at these drawings. uh yeah, and also what else should I advise? And then if you have these concepts already, the breakdown, you broke it, you made some breakdowns of concepts kasi kailangan mo siyang hati-hatiin because it comprises of many concepts, like yun na nga, for infill, isn't it? My mixed use, underutilized, and then affordable housing also as one of the key concepts. So you start thinking about, okay, so how should I approach infill? So the house, how, HOWS, how should I approach infill? So cities can designate special districts to focus on infill development. So try to imagine that as an approach. And these districts identify specific areas within the municipality or city where infill development is encouraged. Another approach, so I mentioned about special districts, development districts. So you can kind of name it also, what kind of special district is that, or SD, special development one or something, anything that you would put branding, or you would put some label into that kind of methodology or a planning tool. And then another approach is, so especially on special development district. Another one is adaptive reuse and redevelopment. So how do you do that? So cities can establish criteria for adaptive reuse. What is adaptive reuse? So pangalawang concept na yun, ano? So we are defining, and the concepts are mounting within one concept. So you can kind of you can have a troubled mind, or you can be burned out. Oh my OMG. So it contains many things. Parang yeah, you want to you're in the or ano to, integral calculus, pero nag-absent ka ng 3 beses doon sa differential calculus, na nagma-mount yung concepts na yun, you can no longer catch up. So it's ganon din sa urban planning, that you need to yung mga mas basic and put it in one, kasi as we go along and as we, like, as we go into complex systems, complex tools, ganyan, and nagma-mount yung ano, and then, and suddenly you go back to your definition of terms. Nandun ka pa lang. You were you were kind of stuck in definition of terms. When you prepare for board exam, hindi lang nagma-matter yung definition of terms. You also need to imagine how should that work in order to answer correctly. And so that your intelligent guessing strategy during the board exam should work because you can imagine how those concepts should be applied. See, mas magandang yung 7 days is 7 days, tomorrow it's 6 days. Mauubos yan, di ba? But the best thing is ganito, na kahit mas konti lang yung at least na-retain 100% mo yung kaysa napakadami mo nasa definition of terms ka pa lang. And that's why it's not really very practical it's not effective when you do review lang 5 days, 10 days. Dapat talaga months and months yan through the master's degree sana. But okay, I'll move here. Adaptive reuse. So nabanggit ko lang 'yon kasi adaptive reuse is repurposing. So I hope you already know that repurposing existing buildings in this context for new uses. Okay, when you are trying to convert or you're trying to, you know, adaptive reuse is changing or repurposing those existing uses, the existing use to a new one. So also adaptive reuse and because it mentioned about redevelopment, so it's a combined strategy, adaptive reuse and redevelopment. And these concepts help to revitalize older neighborhoods and make better use of existing structures. So remember, adaptive reuse and redevelopment is under infill development. So, but of course, it's also located in other concepts like heritage in general. But because we are here in the overlay zones, so we need to remember that. Okay, so yeah, what are the design guidelines? Communities can enhance zoning ordinances by including design guidelines specific to infill development. So these guidelines ensure that new projects fit well with the existing urban environment and meet community standards. So Makati, I think Makati here, nilagay ba nila na example ito? But in Makati, yeah, they had defined special development areas in their CLUP, and their goal is to, nakalagay ba dito? Can you see? Yeah, there, Makati, okay, okay, here. Makati has defined special development areas in its latest CLUP, pero ano na ito, nag-pass na. For 2030 to 2022 in order to unlock the potential of underdevelopment areas while retaining the area's original residents and enhancing its character. Okay? So, also, it gave a foreign example, City of Mesa, Arizona, defined an infill development district to promote and facilitate the development and redevelopment of bypassed, underutilized, or abandoned properties. Okay, so these districts provides for the establishment of specific land uses, development standards, altered fees, and streamlined review process incentives to stimulate reinvestment and development of properties in a manner that will contribute to the creation of high-quality context for employment, which will improve its overall economic viability of that area of the city. So, okay. So, yung infill development overlay is an overlay zone that can be integrated under Article 5. Siguro, you will remember that. Kasi they also ask about which article in Volume 3 or parang ganun sa We're now in mixed use. Okay. What are mixed use zones? Napakadali nito, di ba? Yes, so again, it's a planning tool that integrate all this. Residential, commercial, institutional, sometimes industrial uses within a single development area. So that's the mixed use. Hindi yung kalat-kalat na mixed use because it has to be in a single development area or neighborhood to be called a mixed use. So these zones aim to create vibrant, diverse urban areas where people can live, work again, and do all those things, you know, but the main goal is to reduce the need for long commutes and fostering a more dynamic urban development. So we have the key concepts for mixed use, but again, it gave City of Makati has designated some residential, all commercial zones and all institutional zones for mixed use. So that's in 2000. Okay. But napakakonti ng ano, no? But it also says, this concept, kasi baka ibigay din ito, this concept is often used with pedestrian and transit, the POD, okay, the POD and TOD, isn't it? And then the UGB, okay? And infill, parang lahat naman na for mixed use, kasi mixed use, di ba? So, again, there are key concepts like increased density, so diversity of uses because it's mixed use. And then increased density because these zones often feature higher density developments to maximize land use efficiency and support local businesses. So higher density can include multi-story buildings with residential units above commercial spaces, di ba? So, and also, Makati has utilized floor area ratio. Okay, so I'm not sure of other, probably BGC also. But for other cities in Metro Manila, they did not use FAR or wala yun sa kanilang zoning. So also another feature or another we have diversity of uses because it's mixed use, increased density because yeah, it's one of the features, higher density developments to they need to maximize land use efficiency and also support local businesses, di ba? So that's why it's mixed use. And then reduce travel distances also by, just a moment. Okay. Okay. By integrating various land uses, mixed use zones reduce the need for long commutes, encouraging walking, biking, and the use of public transit. So this leads to less traffic congestion and lower environmental impact. So those are the important goals of mixed use zones. So transition zoning, which Annalyn has mentioned earlier. So what's all about that transition zoning, it's a planning tool. Meron din siyang drawing. It's a planning tool that establishes special regulations for areas where different land uses meet, such as where a commercial zone borders a residential zone. And then the purpose of transition zoning is to provide a smooth and aesthetically pleasing transition between these areas, minimizing conflicts and enhancing the overall urban environment. So what are those key concepts? As I mentioned earlier before, informally kanina, buffering, it's buffering incompatible uses. So transition zoning helps to buffer incompatible land uses such as high density commercial areas next to low density residential neighborhoods. I also mentioned about Bel Air having a vast, it's all Bel Air 1, 2, meron yatang 3. So it's all spread in Makati. And so and then side by side or alongside all these high-rise commercial areas. And so this one is very important. This can involve adjusting building heights setbacks and landscaping requirements to create a gradual transition. So that's number one. That's what first concept, buffering incompatible uses. And another key concept is that on special regulations, specific rules apply to transition zones to ensure that new developments are compatible with neighboring areas. And so these regulations might include limitations on building height, increased setbacks, and specific design standards. Just a minute. So another one is aesthetic and functional transition. The goal is to create an area that's visually and functionally cohesive, improving the urban experience for residents and business alike. This can include streetscape improvements, so that's streetscaping or waterscaping, public spaces, and pedestrian-friendly design. So a lot could be done to fulfill these key concepts, being aesthetically pleasing and functional, having functional transition. So the design features include height limits. So buildings in transition zones may have height restrictions to ensure they do not overshadow adjacent residential areas. For example, okay. So you can see this one, mixed use zone district and then adjacent residential district. So they may have, so the maximum allowed height might decrease as the building gets closer to the residential zone. Okay, and then as to setbacks and buffers, increased setbacks from the property line can be required to provide space between different uses. So the buffers could be landscape, could be landscapes such as trees and shrubs, can also be used to soften the transition. So you can see there some trees there. So another one is, okay, another thing is specific design standards might be implemented to ensure that new developments are visually compatible with existing buildings. So this can include guidelines on building materials, like the roof lines and architectural styles. So yeah, that could also be included in the zoning ordinance. Okay. So how could you, so through zoning, isn't it? Community engagement also, that we engage the community in the planning process. Yeah, it is crucial to identify the needs and preferences of residents and businesses. Yeah, you need to speak and you need to get also their thoughts, and then it should inform the final, it should inform the plan, the strategy, and the overall decision making process. So there's also what we call a strategy. I mean, in economic incentives, offering incentives such as tax breaks or grants to developers who adhere to transition zoning regulations. It can encourage compliance, who can encourage compliance and high quality development. So streamlining the approval process for projects in transition zones can also make these areas more attractive for development. So indeed, it's essential tool for managing the interface between land uses in urban areas. Okay. So how about design standards? So if we talk about tools earlier, but But this one, design standards and neighborhood compatibility could be very long, but you know, there are also some drawings there. And just want to, these are actually design standards and neighborhood compatibility are urban design rules that govern the appearance of buildings to establish a distinct and coherent character for a place. So these rules are essential in ensuring that new developments, so you can see there, or renovations are visually and functionally harmonious with their surroundings. So they are often used in areas with pedestrian orientation, historic districts, or infill developments. So what are the key concepts here? Could be long. But architectural style and character. So I just mentioned that design standards control the architecture style, mass, bulk, height, number of stories, roof design, scale, orientation, setbacks, open space, texture, color, and so on. The building materials of and building materials also. So the goal is to maintain a cohesive architecture character, I mentioned already, that aligns with a defined zone or district. Also, another key concept is spatial. Okay, the spatial dimensions and relationships. These standards address the spatial dimensions and relationships between buildings, streets, and open spaces to ensure that new developments fit well within the existing urban environment or fabric and contribute positively to the neighborhood's character. So, actually, this one, can we see here that design standards can be set up as a conditional use or ordinance under the jurisdiction of a planning board. This means that any development or significant renovation must meet these standards to receive approval. Okay. Yeah, like you can see an example here, Intramuros. Okay. Intramuros, where no structure, including stone walls, fences, light, or other fixtures, steps, and paving shall be erected, altered, restored, moved, or demolished within Intramuros without the administration's certificate of appropriateness. As to external architectural features and its congruity with the historic district, including general design and arrangement, types of windows, so pati yung types of windows, doors, light, and other fixtures and signs, material and location of advertisements and bill posters. So that's okay. So what can you say that this ensures that any changes are in harmony with the historical and architectural integrity of the district. So a lot there. There's also another example, but again, design features, architectural style, height and bulk, setbacks and open space, and materials and colors. So I mentioned already about this one. So those benefits, this should include aesthetic, functionality, and then economic. So okay, can you see the discourage and encourage? Okay. Oh, yes. Okay. So facade. What is facade zoning? Or zones? Okay, it could be long again. Anyway, my drawing naman. Okay. So they are again urban design regulations focusing on the control, okay, on the publicly accessible parts of buildings such as storefronts or building facades, diba? Facade is a front. So unlike general building design rules that apply to the entire structure, facade zone regulations aim to enhance the visual and functional quality of building exteriors. Okay, siguro mamay mo, you can answer this particular topic kasi building exteriors, the keyword, that face public spaces. So this concept is commonly used in pedestrian-oriented areas and historic districts to promote active street life and preserve cultural heritage. So public accessible, key concepts, publicly accessible facades, architectural elements. I mentioned about the style, height, etc. And then enhancing pedestrian experience. So the goal is to create attractive, engaging, and pedestrian-friendly streetscapes. So how do you do that? And it should involve, ensuring transparency, like large windows, aesthetic appeal, like well-designed storefronts. So they have in Iloilo, I think Iloilo, it was here. Okay. Iloilo City has very specific rules for facade design, differentiating the upper facade and the storefront below. Okay. Iloilo City Cultural Heritage Conservation Council. So you can see the drawing there. So, okay, pedestrian-oriented facades and the transparent window area. Weather protection of at least, is that 5 feet wide along at least 75% of the facade. So can you see there? So they need to be visually appealing and pedestrian friendly urban environments. Okay. Setbacks. Setbacks, open spaces and yards. Setbacks, open spaces, and yards are essential urban planning elements that ensure functional and aesthetic quality of built environments. So these rules govern the distance between buildings and property lines, as well as the allocation of open spaces to create a more livable and sustainable urban environment. They contribute to the community by providing greenery, promoting pedestrian movement, enhancing property value, and preventing overdevelopment. So they are the setbacks. They are setbacks. Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at the, okay. Here. Let's see. What did they give as an example? All right. So anyway, a Boracay, it mentioned about Boracay. Okay. It says it has a minimum open space. The island of Boracay has minimum open space requirements for commercial and residential uses. Commercial and residential uses. Okay. 10%. Okay. 10% for lots 200 square meters or less. 20% for lots greater than 200 square meter. So that's the minimum open space they have in Boracay. But less than 1,000, okay, less than 1,000 square meter. And 40%, halos kalahati na, no? Of lots more than 1,000 square meters. So that's, okay, that's in their zoning ordinance. And then, so it advised open space requirements can be inserted as a separate section. Baka true or false na ano, di ba? Na question. Open space requirements can be inserted as a separate section entitled open space under Article 6. Yes, setback rules are normally placed under the heading of the bulk regulations for selected Grabe naman pag ibigay pa nila 'to 'no. But anyway, okay, it says also specific yard rules are normally enumerated, okay? Normally enumerated under development standards for a specific overlay zone under Article 5, always Article 5. Now for the um, driveway width and curb cuts. So, yeah, these are again regulations designed to manage the points where vehicles enter and exit uh, private properties from public streets. So these rules aim to improve pedestrian safety, enhance traffic flow, and maintain the aesthetic appeal of streetscapes. So by controlling the size and placement of driveways and curb cuts, cities can reduce conflicts between vehicles and pedestrians and ensure a more organized urban environment. So, yeah, driveway with curb cuts. So, we know what's driveway with, right? So, that it says, hindi ba niya nalagay dyan? Okay. But, standard widths typically range from 10 to 18 feet. 10 to 18 feet depending on the type of property and expected traffic volume. While the curb cuts are these are the sloped sections of curbs that allow vehicles to transition smoothly between the street and the driveway. So mostly mga hotels, di ba? And also condos. So regulations often dictate the spacing and dimensions of curb cuts to minimize the impact on pedestrian pathways and maintain consistent streetscapes. So building height. Okay, building height. So of course, it's used to control the vertical dimensions of buildings within specific areas. So, sagutan niyo yan. So, these limitations help manage development density, preserve skyline, okay? Preserve skyline aesthetics, ensure adequate light and air, and protect the character of neighborhoods. So, building height can vary significantly depending on the local context and planning objectives. Building height as a development control, okay? Ba dito? Okay. As a development control, so building height limits manage building height limits manage the volume and scale of development, helping to prevent overcrowding and overdevelopment in urban areas. So these controls ensure that new developments are in harmony with their surroundings and do not negatively impact the existing urban fabric. As an economic incentive, the building height as an economic incentive. So over time, restrictions can influence property values and development potential. So in areas where economic conditions change, increased height limits can incentivize the redevelopment of older or economically challenged buildings. As an aesthetic and functional consideration, so building height uh, or height variations can create a visually interesting skyline and ensure that buildings contribute positively to the city's overall appearance. So regulations can also ensure that tall buildings do not cast excessive shadows or block views. Okay. So, yeah, what they have the Hong Kong here, di ba? Hong Kong has a non-domestic podium height restriction of 15 meters. Also, LA, so it says there. Okay, so specific building height rules are normally placed under the heading, okay, of the building height limit for selected districts base zones or overlay zones under Article 5. So, I mentioned we had a lot of examination before on floor area ratio. Yeah, those who were not able to take the exam or mock quizzes on floor area ratios. Jen, do you mind sending them? Okay, just contact Jen so that you can answer questions on floor area ratios. Okay ba? A lot there, like 50 ba yun? I forgot, 30 or 50 questions that we had para maano natin si floor area ratio, isn't it? But still, dadaanin ko pa din ito because, it's a key urban planning metric used to regulate the density and bulk of buildings in a given area. So unlike height regulations, okay, which control the vertical extent of buildings, FAR provides a flexible way to manage both the height and spread of structures by limiting the total floor area relative to the size of the plot of land, isn't it? The formula again. I think Bruce is raising his hand. Bruce?
Hi po, good evening po, Miss Ana.
Yes, yes,
Well,
sure.
yeah, I just like to interrupt po. Regarding po sa excuse me. Regarding po sa sa calculations, I saw while accessing po kaninang 5 p.m. po sa sa PRC, they posted already the schedule po. May room assignment na po.
Talaga?
Yes po, yung Davao pa. Yes, yung Davao pa po yung may room assignment. So
Can you,
upon opening
can you post na doon sa GC natin para lahat makakakita?
sige po, sure po, no problem
Oo.
po. I was
Oo.
about to send din po. At may po doon, may sinabi po doon na no calculators po. All types of calculators are prohibited.
Grabe
Yes
naman.
po.
Paano kayo
Yes po.
mag-compute? Grabe.
Yun nga din po sa akin.
Ganito na lang gagawin natin. All computations, you answer that sa huli na lang. Skip nyo na lang ulit yung hindi ka agad ma-solve. And then, ano to? You need to you need to be very strategic and you need to save some time para makapag-compute kayo manually. And then kapag nakuha na ninyo yung 2 to 3 digits, halimbawa madaming digits yung answer, kapag nakuha na niyo na yung first digit pa lang, halimbawa A, B, C, D, E. And then first digit pa lang, halimbawa 3 yung last digit na nakuha na calculate nyo. Kapag iisa lang yung 3, yun na yung answer. Don't waste time. And then kapag dalawa yung 3, isolve niyo yung second to the last digit, last 2 digits na. Kapag iisa, ganun ulit and follow the same principle. Okay ba tayo? Okay. Don't
Yes,
compute
Okay
the,
po, okay po.
don't compute the kasi kailangan first, second digit. Kapag wala pa rin, compute nyo pa rin. Oo. But do not linger on those computations. Pag ganyan pala, hindi kaya nagkamali sila doon, grabe naman. Inalaw nila yung pwedeng i-complain yan. Inalaw nila yung Qatar, they don't allow you, grabe naman. Grabe naman. Ngayon lang this is the first time that all types of calculator are not allowed. It's the first time.
Yun nga din po yung natingnan ko kanina. Hala,
Ano yan? Baka
ano
naman
ba to?
gumawa sila ng math questions na hindi na kailangan mag-calculator or minimal, di ba? Pero anyway, kailangan meron magsulat doon na bakit pero just prepare. Just prepare lang. And kung hindi i-allowed, edi ibulsa nyo. Kesa naman sa biglang inallow, di ba? And then wala pala kayong dinala. So that's my second advice. Okay ba tayo?
Okay
Thank you,
po.
Bruce. Bruce,
Thank you, ma'am.
naman yung link doon lahat sa.
Na-send ko na po
Okay,
sa
salamat.
GC.
Okay,
Sure.
that's good. Okay. So floor area ratios as opposed to height regulations can regulate both the density. So I mentioned that already, that FAR is defined as the ratio of the total floor area of a building to the area of the plot. Okay? So uh, uh, always na yun yung denominator is the land area, okay? So for example, a FAR of 1:1 means that the total floor area of the building is equal to the area of the plot. So a FAR of 2:1 means that the total floor area can be up to twice the area of the plot. So just a moment. So what else? Density control. So definition of, that's how we define FAR. Density control. So by regulating the FAR, urban planners can control building density, ensuring that developments do not exceed desired limits. And this helps manage urban growth, preventing overcrowding and maintaining character of the neighborhood. So building form flexibility, FAR provides flexibility in building design. Developers can choose how to distribute the allowed floor area across the plot, whether in low-rise or high-rise configuration. So this flexibility allows for creative architectural solutions that meet both regulatory requirements and market demands. So, well, I also mentioned, and nandito rin in Makati, building density shall be controlled by a maximum floor area ratio. So, specific floor area ratio rules, last paragraph, can replace or supplement building height limits for selected districts. So base zones or overlords. Okay, so that one. Just linger on this. So 1 story. Okay, 1,000. 100%, sorry. 100% lot coverage, and 2 stories, 50% lot coverage. Baka ganyan lang yung tatanungin, and di ba? We overkilled our floor area ratio practice, yung ating review. But anyway, that's good for all of us, di ba? 25% lot coverage. So again, nandyan yung transfer of development rights. I already mentioned. I gave a better definition. Preservation naman. So preservation, so what do you preserve? So yan, preservation rules are urban planning. So I'm not defining what's preservation, but because this is in zoning, so preservation rules are urban planning regulations designed to allow controlled developments while protecting valuable environmental features such as natural topography, hydrology, biodiversity, and scenic views. So these rules help prevent environmental degradation, manage erosion and sedimentation, and maintain the natural beauty of an area. So the key concepts: natural topography and features, environmental protection, also aesthetic and scenic preservation, and many more. So design features is okay. There's the Tagaytay City as an example. So it says requires spacing in between obstructive buildings and or in between buildings in adjacent properties to be sufficient to allow lateral unobstructed views of Taal Lake. Okay, so the scenic view remains unobstructed from the Tagaytay Nasugbu and Tagaytay Calamba roads. So obstructive structures are required to have a maximum PLO 30% and the VHL of 5 meters from the geometric center of the structure. So, okay. So it also requires fences. So that's what was written or included in their zoning ordinance. So requires fences along the Tagaytay Nasugbu and Tagaytay Calamba roads, as well as those directly viewing Taal Lake to be see-through and have a maximum height. Okay. Nakalagay see-through and have a maximum height of 1.8 meters from the finished grade line. Finished grade line. And to be of good quality such as wrought iron. Cyclone wire fences are also allowed. Fence based, so you see, there's a detail about what type of fences, di ba? So, we are learning from how these cities have, what was written on their zoning ordinance. So, and then also fence base made of concrete. It says here, hollow blocks, rock or any material shall have a height of no greater than 0.4 from the finished grade line. So, okay. So preservation rules may be developed at the community level as part of a barangay development plan. Baka talangin ito. So at this level. Or in the case of citywide infrastructure or resources, a specific plan or overlay zone for the defined area. Okay. So buffer zones, grading and landscaping, building restrictions also. These are common, like common in the preservation rules. What else? Urban envelopes. Like, konti na lang yata to. Tapusin lang natin yung part na yun so that hindi kaya Urban envelopes are three-dimensional planning tools that define the maximum allowable volume for development within a given area. So, okay. By setting fixed height limits and clear boundaries, urban envelopes control the skyline, preserve views, and ensure that the development occurs within specified limits. Okay. So three-dimensional, it says here. You see this one? Three-dimensional, meaning that it refers to the framework that's three-dimensional. So specifying maximum heights and spatial limits for buildings, and these boundaries help shape the overall form of the urban landscape. And then the skyline and view presentation. So by setting height limits, urban and envelopes help maintain a coherent and attractive skyline. They can be designed to preserve important views such as sight lines to waterfronts and then landmarks or natural features. Also, urban envelopes encourage efficient use of land within the set boundaries. So developers are incentivized to maximize the potential of their plots within the allowed volume, leading to well-planned and economically viable developments. No, yeah, I cannot see any local example, but it mentioned about Seattle, yeah, Seattle's downtown urban center, which includes a defined urban envelope. So yeah, the envelope ensures that development aligns with the city's vision for its downtown area, balancing density and aesthetic considerations. So height limits, spatial boundaries, also terracing. Can you look at the terracing? Yeah, in areas with significant elevation changes, urban envelopes can incorporate terracing or stepping forms to adapt to the terrain. So this approach helps maintain visual harmony and optimize land use on sloped sites. So okay, affordable housing agreements. Yeah, these are also policies, okay? Policies that mandate or incentivizing the mandate of or incentivize the inclusion of affordable housing units within new development projects. So these arguments aim to ensure that communities remain diverse and that housing is accessible to people of varying income levels, particularly low and moderate income households. So the inclusionary housing approach typically involves setting aside a percentage of a development's total units as affordable housing. So I think as a concept, yung inclusionary housing approach, I think it was mentioned in one of our practice exams. That there should also, a key concept is inclusionary housing ordinances, that these ordinances require developers to include a specific percentage of affordable housing units within their projects. So the percentage can vary, but it is typically between 10 and 30% of the total units. So also it speaks about, or incentives and bonuses. So to encourage compliance, municipalities often offer incentive such as zoning exemptions, density bonuses, expedited permitting and reduced fees. Density bonuses allow developers to build more units than normally permitted. So that's like a TDR, isn't it? But they don't need to purchase something here for the owner of the sending area. Diba? Remember, for DTR, sending and the receiving. So the owner of the sending area, you don't need to buy from them. But here you can be incentivized of a density bonus that you, as a developer, you're allowed to build more units than normally permitted in exchange for including affordable housing. So balanced housing development also is one of the key concepts there, because it ensures a mix of housing types within a community, promoting social and economic diversity. Also, it helps meet local housing needs and prevents the displacement of low and moderate income residents. So, yeah, that RA 7279 are the Balanced Housing Development Act, or you remember that, Lina Law? Okay, UDHA. So, yeah, the act mandates that developers or proposed subdivision projects allocate at least 20% of the total subdivision area or project cost to socialized housing. So that's, we all know that already. And so this requirement can be fulfilled within the same city or municipality where the main project is located, ensuring that affordable housing is integrated into the community. So we go to, so you can see there, with inclusionary housing. Okay. Adopt a neighborhood. So what's that, adopt a neighborhood? It's a scheme actually. It's that's adopt a neighborhood schemes are collaborative initiatives where private organizations take on the responsibility for the upkeep and improvement of a specific neighborhood or district in return for their efforts and in maintenance, cleaning, and other revitalization projects. These organizations are allowed to display discrete advertising in the area. So this concept fosters public-private partnerships aimed at enhancing community spaces and improving the quality of life for residents. So what's that PPP all about in this particular context? Just involving collaboration between private organization and public entities. So the private organizations commit to maintaining and improving a neighborhood, while the public entity provides the framework and permissions for advertising. Maintenance, as to maintenance and revitalization. So the private organization is responsible for various neighborhood projects such as cleaning, landscaping, repairing infrastructure, and organizing community events. So these efforts help to rejuvenate and sustain the neighborhood, making it more attractive and livable. In exchange, so in that aspect on advertising rights. In exchange for their services, private organizations are granted rights to display their brand or advertisements in a non-intrusive manner. So may rule pa din. So this advertising helps offset the cost incurred by the private organization in maintaining the neighborhood. So there are practical examples of this, like Adopt a Barangay project, where local businesses or corporations adopt a barangay and take responsibility for its upkeep. They provide services such as regular cleaning, infrastructure repairs, and community programs. So in return, they are allowed to place signs or banners that acknowledge their contributions to the barangay. So how to do that and how does that work? Through MOUs, Memorandum of Understanding, on the adoption agreement. So it could be formalized through an MOU between the private organization and the public entity. Also, in the MOU, it outlines, the specific responsibilities, actions, parties involved, and the duration of the program. So, program of actions, just let me add that the MOU details the scope of maintenance and revitalization activities to be undertaken. This can include street cleaning, graffiti removal, park maintenance, public art installations, and community events, among others. As I mentioned earlier, there are also guidelines to follow, to be followed by the private organization. So the advertising should enhance, so that's one, rather than detract from the neighborhood's aesthetics. So just one of the guidelines. So okay, so I can almost 11. Yeah, we can do more tomorrow, but 8:30. So, but you need to take the exam tomorrow. Again, I will just get questions and construct questions within this one, within CLUP. So anything that I know will be of great help. Annalyn, you're raising your hand.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, may I share lang sa mga classmates ko din.
Okay.
Kasi ma'am, may bagong ano na rin kasi ma'am sa rule ma'am sa 7279 pa po ma'am na meron ng yung ni-revise yung sections 18 and 20 ma'am, yung regarding dun sa balance housing. Actually, sa na-apply din namin ma'am yun sa project namin kasi since wala kaming socialized housing na ipa-partner, we pay for the escrow amount ma'am.
Okay, can you please share na kaagad, ha? Thank you.
Apo ma'am, i-share ko na lang
Sige.
ma'am sa sa
Sige.
group yung yung baka kasi matanong lang din, i-share ko lang sa classmates ko na may ganun ma'am na hindi na siya yung house lang equivalent housing, pwede ka ng fund
Iba.
na magiging parang trust fund po siya ma'am with developer and then that issued po. Tapos yun, kailangan magsasign sila ng agreement ng memorandum, tapos ilalagay sa bank na approve ng issued. Tapos gagamitin yun sa mga, hindi lang po sa housing, pwede yun mga gagamitin sa mga ma'am, sa mga socialized projects like mga covered courts, kung merong mga socialized projects na walang funds para po dun sa LGUs.
Okay. So lahat ng mga lahat ng mga mga updates, please doon lahat so that everyone can benefit. Thank you, Annalyn. Okay. Mismo yung amendment siguro na so that we can also see. Just in case lang matanong yung amendment kasi depende kung anong year siguro, anong year yung Sometimes they give outdated questions and sometimes if we are lucky enough, we can see already an updated question, parang ganun. But still, kung wala sa choices, yung outdated pa rin yung isasagot natin. Okay? Yun ba yung
Thank you, ma'am.
884 ba yung, ano yung is it another one or anong specific section doon? So, let me see. Okay, na i-send na lang ulit kaagad. Thank you, Annalyn. So, I think I should end there and expect an examination at 8:30. Again,